Tell us a story.
Yes, tell us a story.
Alrighty then. I don't know if you can see my breath, but she is cold and frosty this morning. A little bit later in the day. It's around 9:30, 10. We're going to have to let the gopher warm up for a while. So, it's story time. As I've said before, I've worked in printing companies. I've worked in graphic arts houses, photo labs. I was painted cars for a while, worked as a mechanic, worked at dealerships as mechanics, and prep guys. Back when I was first starting out in the printing, as I worked on the press as a press help, what they used to do is whenever they got the new guys, they used to call them the FNGs. Anyway, they would take all the new guys. We'd work anywhere from a 12 to 14 hour shift. A lot of times we'd put in almost 90 hours a week. That's just printing. You just work non-stop, day in, day out, basically. Some of the companies that I worked at were a 2-hour drive one way, and you know, then you'd put in your 12 hours and then you'd drive back and you only got a few hours for sleep. When you first started out as the FNG, part of the duties at once or twice a week when they did press maintenance or full cleanups, all the ink and debris and the paper and everything would float to the floor and pile up underneath the press. And the presses were only about 12, 14 inches off the ground, a lot of the rollers. So they'd lay paper ends where they had the big rolls of paper and they were flat on each end. They'd cut the paper ends off and they'd slide them under these presses to catch all the ink, the oils, the debris and everything, so that they could pull it out and clean it later. Well, part of the initiation, or what they thought was the initiation, or they called the initiation, if you were the FNG, you got all the bad jobs, everything that was really crappy and so forth. So they used to take the guys and they would have them crawl under the press as far as they could in this 6 inches of muck and nasty inks and oils and dissolvents, and you'd grab as much of this stuff as you could, and then they'd grab you by the ankles and drag you back out. It's kind of like the old thing when they used to take and tie a rope to a pig and put them in the oil pipes during the old oil derrick days. They'd put a pig in the oil pipe and run it through. They'd poke it or burn it or whatever and have it run through, and as it got stuck, they would pull it back out. So they now have electronic devices that they call the pig that they do that with. So this is how they used to do the FNGs, the new guys at printing companies and stuff. You would come out and it would just be the nastiest. Your skin, under your nails, everything. You would actually, it would stain and penetrate your skin. Nowadays, OSHA would have a field day frying people over something like that because of all the contaminants and the PCBs and everything in the oils and inks and stuff that was just carcinogens that just ruin you. So I know there's no wonder over all the years of the painting and everything that I've done that all of my neurological problems, health problems, whatever, stem from those types of chemicals built up in your body, poisons and stuff, my liver and everything else. But you couldn't prove that nowadays. You couldn't prove none of it nowadays to get anything from it, so it wouldn't do any good to even say, hey, well, this probably happened by this. A lot of people wouldn't even believe you. But that's what they used to do to these guys. They'd make them crawl under. I had to go through it for a couple years on different places that I went, is what they did. And you always hoped for the next new guy to come in soon. Some fool that would come in and want to work 12 to 14 hours covered in poison. You just always hoped. That was one of the biggest things. And when you got them, you would get to move over one step, and hopefully they wouldn't quit before you moved up 2 steps. Because if you just moved up 1 step, and that guy would come in and quit, and we had guys come in and quit the first night. After the first 12-hour, 14-hour shift, they quit the first night. They would go out in the parking lot and say, you're all crazy. And pretty much most of all the guys I worked with over that time were either drunk or stoned half the time, or they were just nuts and they couldn't get a real job anyplace else paying the money that type of thing paid. So, story time. Let's see if we can go ahead and get in. She will let us run and get into work this morning. There's still a little bit of frosty, but let's ride. Don't get me wrong, I worked with a lot of really nice guys all those years that I worked on presses and printing companies and stuff, but I guess like anything, I worked with some of them, some really choice individuals. The entire experience taught me a lot about how things really worked in the workforce itself, and no matter what you do, no matter how hard it is, no matter how difficult it is or distasteful it is, you really have to do it for yourself. Learn what you can, do what you can, find where you fit in, find in what pleases you, but whatever you do, no matter what you put into it, make sure you're doing it for yourself and not some type of just even the pay, because the pay doesn't cover what really you go through a lot of times. Also, never sell yourself short. There are always ways to better yourself if you want to. If you have that much drive to work in situations like that, you should have enough drive to better yourself and go on and move up. Those were good places if you lasted long enough to be able to get above the press room into foremen, supervisors, or lead positions. It took me many years, and I did that from working from the press into the graphic design, graphic arts, prep room, camera room departments, and traveled around a lot of different places. Made some really, really decent money for the 70s and early 80s. It was enjoyable and very enlightening and pleasurable as far as the educational and learning standpoint. But I also learned that you can't trust everybody. You have to care for yourself. Unfortunately, I made some really bad decisions in the 80s and lost absolutely everything. And I mean everything. And that is a story for another time. We're at work. She treated us well. The gopher was wonderful today. We're going to start our day. See ya!
Story time is over!
Damn, that was annoying.